Hello everyone, hope you've been doing well. Welcome to this new starting RTA video series. So in those videos, I'll simply go through the list of units of a certain class, and I'll talk about what the ones you might see in RTA and you might want to play yourself. I'll just explain what they do, basically. So if you're new to RTA, you can get an idea of who does what, basically. Let's get started. So we start with 3 stars. We only have two to mention. I mean, realistically one, but I'll mention Pyllis as well because, I mean, why not? She saw some play not like, I don't know, a year or two ago, but yeah, I mean, why not? So Pyllis, basically she's sub DPS, like you can't really play her as your main carry. She's a very tanky sub DPS with some utility. She can give defense buff to her team, she can provoke, she can give a shield, she can push her team. And the main reason why she saw any play was two things. So she reduces the damage your team takes from extra attack, counter attacks, and dual attacks by 30%. And she has extra hit chance. And she's a knight, so she can hold, like she's a defense scaling knight. She can hold rocket punch, she can sell defense buff. So she was basically just played as a counter to evasion units. Like you would pick her into MLV, into Adin, into, I mean, you could Flan as well potentially, like all of those evasion units, and she would just like provoke them and kill them really fast. But yeah, when I say it like that, like you might think, hey, shouldn't she be really good into Flan? Yeah, she isn't that strong of a unit, that's why you don't really see her. But she might come back, you never know. Alright, the second knight is gonna be a 3-star knight, is gonna be Ras. Ras is an Warrior Soldier. Most of the time he's gonna be played on protection set. Ras is a turn 2 versus turn 2 unit, basically, which means you almost only gonna see him when RCT is not pre-banned. He's pretty good as turn 2 versus turn 2 because he makes his backline unit safer by... he has a passive that makes it so if the backline unit gets dropped below 50% HP, they get a very big shield. So that helps you like keep them alive. And then his S2 lets you duel with the highest attack unit, which is gonna be like your hyper carry, like basically. Unless you're playing Pera and like an HP scaling unit, but like most of the time it's gonna be like your hyper carry. And so that can be like usually it's gonna be, right now it's gonna be Tori. But in the past we've had SSB, we've had ML Bellona, we've had Green Landy, we've had Milim. Like you have a lot of options, like we've had a lot of options over the years. Just lately Tori is basically the best. But yeah, like anything like scaling with attack, or like any like big carry can be really good with him because he can force duels, and his S2 can defense break as well, and he can soul burn to get it down to 1 turn cooldown, which means he can potentially just S2 every turn, which is very, it's a lot of tempo basically, it's just a lot of tempo for you. And then his S3 is just like defense buff for everyone, he heals himself, helps keep himself alive, and then S1 is just, yeah, like it pushes himself a bit and then potentially dispel a buff. But yeah, Ras, only turn 2 versus turn 2. When you play against aggro or cleave, you're pretty much you're never gonna see him. Okay, next unit, Armin. I haven't seen her in RTA in forever, but I have seen her in E7WC, so I'm gonna mention her. She's just like Ras, she's a protection Aureus unit. So she's just here, like she's mostly here, like she's your mitigation. The reason why she sees any play is her S2. Her S2 gives your entire team, except for Armin, 30% damage reduction from single attack, which means your entire team gets a free proof against single attack, which is just like crazy mitigation overall. That makes her extremely good against single target nukers like Genoa, like both Celines, like you know, Red Wayong, if she ever sees any play again, like Amel Ball, guess. Like, I mean, I saw her play into him, so I mean, I guess. Yeah, like anything that's anything that's a single target nuker, she's really, really good against. And then like S3 is nothing special, she's gonna be played base speed, so she's probably just gonna press it once, just like remove one debuff or two if you have the EE from your team, get increased defense on herself, barrier to the rest of the team. And then S1, like she can, S1 is a single target with a chance to stun, but if she counters, you may have noticed, she has a chance to counter when she gets attacked. If she counters, it becomes an AoE, so you have a chance to stun on AoE, which is pretty nice. But yeah, like this is like her kit is just 30% damage reduction on single target. That's the only reason she has any relevance. FCC. FCC pretty similar to Ras in the sense that you almost only ever gonna see her against slow players. Like she's pretty bad into cleave overall, so you're very rarely gonna see her into cleave and aggro. S3, she transfers debuffs to the enemy team. She gives a skill null to her team. S2 basically she basically gets a free prot set, so she can be built speed set or triple set if you want. S1 as a provoke. The only reason this unit sees any kind of play is the first part of her S2, grants 50% additional damage reduction to all allies. That means every unit that like uses stuff like 3F, Tooth, Rocket Punch is gonna do a lot less damage, which makes like she's really strong into those. She also reduces Luna's S2 damage, she reduces Kairon S3, she reduces Shu's S2. Like all of those units become a lot worse into her overall. But yeah, this is just like all of those units for the most part, they're turn 2 units, and like the only two I would say that aren't are Luna and Pera, but those two units don't really, like if you're getting cleaved, Pera's damage and Luna's damage isn't really gonna be your main concern, so she isn't really gonna help you all that much. But yeah, she just like another mitigation knight. Her and Ras are fairly similar, just because they're just against turn 2 only. If RCT is pre-ban, you're almost never gonna see Ras, you're almost never gonna see Cecilia. Now Yufine. Yufine used to be a really strong Elbrys knight, but this, like, Elbrys is pretty dead since like Mort and Pera and like a lot of other things. So now, since she has an extremely strong S2, she reduces your enemy CR push by 50%. She's become a very strong Orius knight. Like, you don't really care for her S3, you don't really care for her S1, she's really just here for her S2, but since you just want her for her S2, then you might as well, she's just here for utility, you might as well just give her protection set, for that way you don't need to pick another one, and you might as well give her Orius, that way you have mitigation. So that's how, yeah, like Yufine basically just became another Orius knight, and she is the prime she's the prime mitigation knight that you're gonna want against aggro and cleave. Like if RCT is pre-ban, most of the time you're gonna want to pick Yufine, because every aggro and cleave team is gonna be relying on CR push. Like, it's just how the game works. They're gonna want to take a lot of turns, they're gonna want to bridge their own team, which means they're gonna rely on CR push, and Yufine cuts that by 50%, which is extremely valuable. So yeah, here we are. Next we have Candy. Candy is basically, she was kind of like Yufine, an Elbrys knight. Again, Elbrys pretty dead, so Candy is pretty dead. On top of that, she's even weaker to like Pera and stuff than Yufine because she isn't nearly as tanky. That being said, you can sometimes rarely play her. She's gonna be, I still think counter is best on her. You just go counter Elbrys and you just play her on 5. The reason why you never want to pick her is the fact that she gives your entire team anti-crit. It's not so much the fact that she gives anti-crit as the fact that she gives a buff, because now you can just stack buffs. Which means you're gonna play, let's say I have a protection knight, let's say I have Candy, let's say all my units have immunity, I now have 3 buffs. Immunity is 1 turn, everything else is 2 turns, like barrier is 2 turns, anti-crit is 2 turns, which means immunity is gonna be rightmost on my buff list, which means if my opponent plays something like ML Tenebria, like the Light Tenebria, the new one, she strips 2 buffs, and she won't be able to strip my immunity. So if she has return 1, she's not gonna do anything, basically. Like, it's not gonna affect anyone aside from Candy. That being said, this doesn't work if your opponent picks a second stripper, right? So that's why you're only ever gonna pick her as like 4-5. And even then, like extremely rarely. But yeah, that's what Candy does now. That's her role. LRK, he doesn't really see plays anymore, but I'll still mention him. He's a very strong unit into AoE. He completely stops Belian, and he used to see a lot of play in RCT because when everyone is base speed, he becomes really strong because he gets to be like really high HP, and RCT, I mean, she does AoE, so. But since we have Dark Adin and stuff, now he's not very, he's basically, yeah, you're almost never gonna see him. But basically, S3 grants immunity to his entire team for 2 turns, penetrate defense, which means he does a lot of damage, but he does very little damage if into ML Ilynav and into Diane. He doesn't care that much for evasion though, because he doesn't crit. So, like, yeah, skills that penetrate defense don't really care much for evasion, as long as like the unit doesn't crit. So, but that's the case most of the time. On top of that, he reduces his team's cooldown by 1 turn, which is really good tempo, because he's gonna be, like, most of the time the slowest unit on your team, so everyone uses their skill, LRK goes, everyone's minus 1 turn cooldown, that's very nice. S2, anytime he gets attacked, reduces skill cooldown by 1 turn, but if it's an AoE, reduces it by 2 turns, and give your entire team a barrier. That's what makes him so good into AoE, right? Like, you get a barrier every time you get AoE'd, his S3 cooldown goes down, and you can potentially S3 again very fast. He gives your entire team a big barrier. Yeah, just really nice overall. He used to be a protection Orius Knight. Now he's kinda, I don't know, he doesn't really have, like, again, he isn't really played anymore. I think if I played him, I would probably build him speed with like this artifact, because you only really want to pick him into like guaranteed AoE, so probably only if your opponent only picks Belian. Aside from that, I don't think he's very useful right now. Then we have Ilynav. I mentioned her earlier, she's like the second best knight into aggro cleave. The reason for that is her S2, sorry. It makes her cycle a lot. Anytime someone gets hit, she gets 10% CR push. If your entire team gets hit, that's 40%. And she gives you, your entire team, 30% penetration resistance, which means units like Strays, units like Genoa, units like Gala, units like ML Ace, units like ML Senya are gonna do a lot less damage. That being said, all of those units are not really meta right now, aside from Strays, but Strays does so much damage with Amid and Aram that he can actually ignore, like, I mean, doesn't ignore her passive, it still reduces his damage, but he does so much damage that you still die. So yeah, she's still strong, obviously. She works into ML Ball as well. Yeah, he got buffed recently, and she's gonna work into ML Ras. But yeah, she's just a bit awkward now because all of the units she counters aren't really meta. So if you used to be able to just early pick her because, well, you prevent your opponent from, like, you reduce your opponent's options by a lot, but nowadays you don't really reduce them all that much because you're mostly preventing them from picking bad units. So this isn't very all that useful anymore. But she might come back with Ras and stuff, like, we'll have to see. S3 is like nothing. Yeah, she has a cleanse, she injures, she gives your entire team increased defense by 30% and ER by 30%. This isn't undispellable, so it's very strong. And then S1 is just some injury, and she can detonate the injury as well potentially. This was like, the damage was mostly relevant when she few seasons ago because she used to be able to build her damage. Nowadays, I don't think you can really afford it. It made sense in RCT mostly. Outside of RCT, I think it's just better to have a protection or Yulha. So this is what you're gonna face and what you're gonna see most of the time. Protection or Yus again. And yeah, like she's just here for like mitigation and like for utility. But her utility is not as good as Yufine, as I mentioned, so you're mostly gonna see Yufine. But she's like the second best when it comes to utility against aggro and cleave. Okay, then we have Senya, I'll mention. She's... Okay, so Ras protects his back row by giving them a 50%, a very big shield when they drop below 50%. Senya is somewhat similar, except she's more of a carry, which means she doesn't build Orius, she doesn't build protection set, you just build her speed set or triple set. And while she also gives a barrier just like Ras, she also cleanse, which is really big. So Senya's gameplay usually is like, her S3 is a very big, it's a nuke, like it penetrates defense, it's single target, and it pushes your backline by 30%. When she procs her S2, it resets and becomes an AoE, and then it's very scary because it's a lot of damage if you don't have Ilynav, and she deals 2.5k fixed damage on top. And yeah, she's really good at keeping your backline safe, basically. The issue right now is that there's just so many debuffers that she doesn't really help that much into them, and also most you don't have that much AoE anymore. Most nukers are single target, or like the ones that don't care that much for her, like stuff like strays, you can just one tap her with a 3. So, but yeah, like before, the idea was my carry goes, then does a lot of damage, or like presses 3 if it's Celine. She pairs very well with ML Celine because she's like the best unit in the game to keep alive, kinda. And before that, she was also really good with ML Aced. So your carry goes, then Senya goes S3, then if your opponent picked AoE, they were gonna proc her S2, which is gonna reset her S3, and then she's gonna S3 again, do a ton of damage, and push her carry again. Then it's just like so much tempo and damage that you just win the game. Also, when she procs, she becomes immune to debuffs, which is really strong. But the backline doesn't, sadly, otherwise she'd be a lot stronger. Boss Arunka, it's kinda like basically picture like the Great Wall of China, that's her. If you put her in front of your team and then your opponent cannot hit anything aside from her, and she's the tankiest unit in the game by far. So yeah, she's just really annoying. She's weak to debuffs because like most debuffers, they don't really need to target, right? They don't need to target to like actually click on your team. Like it's just all AoE. So she's actually pretty weak to debuffers. She's not that good into Pyrrha because Pyrrha can just soul burn and AoE. But she's really annoying if your opponent is slow, mostly. Because if your opponent is slow, they won't really like stack debuffers usually. Because it's really awkward into RCT, so they'll be forced to like pick carries and like actually hit her. Anytime you hit her, she pushes herself 25%, and then her S3 is like a full strip into a defense break. She gives herself defense buff, she gives herself a barrier, and she's on a 3 turns cooldown for some reason, which means it's basically always up. As soon as your defense buff fades, next turn you can S3 again, so that's really annoying. And then S1 defense break, and potentially if you soul burn for 10 souls, you can duel with your highest attack unit. So yeah, she's just a wall basically. Like she's extremely strong against slow players, against fast players, not as strong but still pretty strong. Like it's just nice to have a wall in front of your team, right? So like it lets you pick a bit, like it lets you be more greedy in your draft. Like it lets you pick more, yeah, like stuff you would get punished for otherwise suddenly work because you have her first pick, right? So yeah, that's Arunka. You're probably gonna pre-ban her or see her a lot. Belian. Belian, like since 3F got introduced, it made her extremely strong. Her S2 denies souls entirely, which is crazy strong. Her S3 just she's all AoE. S1 and S3 are both AoE. S3 you decrease combat readiness, so you push back, you provoke, you give yourself defense buff. S1 damage, potentially a strip, and potentially 35% chance to proc. Attack again and inflict decrease speed, decrease chance. If you soul burn, 100% chance to proc. So back when she was released, she was built on crit. She was really strong, but with time it became pretty bad. Then we got 3F, which allowed her to build up like full tank. So you either go speed set or counter set, and you just go like full tank, which made her really annoying again because she was extremely tanky. She has a very strong S2 and she does really big damage. Now, since FCC got buffed, it made her a bit more awkward because you used to be able to draft her like 1-3 very easily. Now, if you draft her 1-3, your opponent can just slow down, pick FCC, and you're basically down 1 unit. So yeah, it become a bit more awkward. But she's still, like, you're still gonna see her, you're still gonna pick her. She's still a pretty strong unit. Since she ignores, since she's a 3F unit, right? She doesn't really care for, like, she doesn't need to crit, so she doesn't really care for evasion. She's gonna kill units like Pera and Flan, like, fairly fast. Yeah, like, that's it, really. But yeah, she's just, like, she's a pretty strong carry. She's a pretty strong carry with a lot of utility. Like, denying souls is crazy good. When you see mages, they're usually gonna be on books. Like, if you see, like, 2 of them, you can usually just pick Belian. Okay, Tywin you won't see. Actually, you know what? You never know. So, Tywin, he used to be played as turn 2, but not really the case anymore. When he gets attacked, he cleanses 1 debuff from his team, and he gets rage. That's really nice. That being said, it's not really enough anymore. Like, 1 cleanse isn't really enough because it's only 1 per turn, and he's like, if you play slow, you're gonna play him really slow. So right now, most of the times you're gonna see him played with ML Politis in cleave. The reason why is because ML Politis gives him rage, right, and she strips. So the idea is ML Politis is gonna go, press S3, give him rage, strip everyone, and then he's gonna be built fairly fast, like 250 plus. He's gonna take the turn, he's gonna press S3, and he's gonna get ignore ER, stun, and decrease defense on everyone, which is just like really strong. Yeah, that being said, like, that's his main use right now, but you won't really see much overall. Like, cleavers playing ML Politis on that common, and for turn 2 is basically useless now. So yeah. Tywin, who do we have left? Okay, Yulha, actually, you won't see her much, especially with ML, like, Light Meru coming, but I'll still mention her. So Yulha is basically only in RTA a Strays bait, and she only works if you have Ilynav as well. So the idea is you have your ML Ilynav on Orius, then you're gonna pick a base speed Yulha, which is gonna be higher HP, and then if your opponent press Strays S3, it's like Yulha is gonna take most of the damage, but thanks to Ilynav S2 and Orius, it won't actually kill her. It's gonna do like 30k damage or something, and she will actually get to live. And since she reflects damage on her S2, Strays is gonna kill himself from pressing S3 basically, and then you're just gonna win the game from there because your opponent is down for, like, your opponent just lost their main carry. So this is Yula's use. And then her S3 is just like a big nuke, a big single target nuke. She heals herself as well. She needs to be low HP for it to do damage. And yeah, that's it. Usually you're gonna play her for this game, like for this niche, you're gonna play her either Proof or Olisak. Next, Mort. Mort is mostly here because of this, which is he prevents counters. Like, he prevents counters, which means only he has innate counter though, but yeah, no one else in your team or your enemy team aside from him can counter. And so that's really annoying for like Elbrich units, obviously, and ML Lua to some extent. She can still provoke you, but she cannot counter anymore, right? Her team cannot counter anymore, which is really nice. And yeah, aside from that, he has his S3 is like a decent nuke, mostly on the highest HP unit. The reason why it does this like pretty good damage is the fact that it penetrates defense. That means if your opponent has Ilynav, it's really not gonna do much. But if they don't, it's gonna do pretty good damage. And then he fears for 2 turns. Fear is really annoying because he ignores ER if he's higher HP than you, so that means most of the time he's gonna tag your Soul Weavers and like everything basically if you don't have ER, if they're lower HP than him and they don't have ER. And even if they're higher HP than him, he's gonna attack them if they don't have ER, sorry. That being said, it can be awkward. Like if you play slow, you're gonna want to play him really slow, so he goes after your entire after your opponent, so they don't have immunity anymore. But he's gonna be sometimes played in like fast teams, and then he's gonna be played usually decently fast, because fast teams pretty much always play a stripper, and then you can just go after and fear your entire team. And then you just have to pray that if you don't have a cleanse, like a Dilibet or something, you just have to pray that you actually just break, like the fear breaks itself. Because it has a 40% chance to break itself. Every turn, and it lasts 2 turns. That's Mort. Usually gonna be played on Holy Sack and Destruction. Albedo, you won't really see her much anymore. She's very similar to Green Armin. She's just like she's a lot of mitigation, except with like a bit more utility and a bit more aggressive. She gives you 20% damage reduction from crit. Green Army, if you remember, is 30% damage reduction, but from single attack. Albedo is from all crit, so it's a bit broader. It's still fairly restrictive, but it's still broader. And yeah, then if someone gets crit, she S2, like she has a proc on S2, which is gonna be an AoE. Dispel 1 buff, give her increased speed. S3 is a full strip with decreased defense and unbuffable. S1 just a bit of damage and CR push. You won't really see her anymore because even though she gives a lot of mitigation, you value utility more than mitigation right now. And her mitigation is just a bit too restrictive. Like damage reduction from crit is nice, but it's not like you have a lot of non-crit in the game right now. Like you have Pera doing a lot of damage, you have Luna with her S2, you have Tenebria, you have all of those units that like just don't really care, right? And now you have Red Eda, you have Sage Ball, like yeah, no one really cares for this all that much. So she used to be really strong, but now she's pretty niche. And again, she back on release, she used to be a 3F unit, and then she like a lot of knights, she became a Aureus protection knight. It is what it is. Who do we have left realistically? I'll cover Charlotte. Why not? So, I mean, Charlotte is very straightforward. She's just a Zio bridge, which means she gets to duel at the start of the game, and then after every 4 turns your team takes, she gets a free duel when someone on your team presses 1. And her duel increase the combat readiness of your team by 20%. So you push your entire team 20% when she S1, which means you can play her with like Zio, right? And then Zio is gonna S1 turn 1, then she's gonna duel, do some damage, and then push her entire team 20%. And then she can S3, give speed buff to her team, potentially stun something, and do a bit of damage. The main issue, I mean, one of the issues she has is that she does very little damage because she is, her base stats are extremely bad. Then on top of that, I mean, I guess she doesn't really have to be fast. She's gonna push her team anyway, but she still needs to take turns, so you're still gonna need like some speed on her if you cleave. And one thing that made her like pretty strong was the fact that she could defense break on S1. But right now, since we got so many units that can defense break turn 1 without stripping, Flan, RCT, Peira, almost everyone is running immunity on everything, and because of that, she's basically never gonna get a defense break turn 1, and it lowers her value by a decent amount. So she's just like she's just here as a bridge, basically. She's just here to push your team now, if you play Zio most of the time. And yeah, she's just gonna be a full damage build. Finally, we have Krau. His S3 is the same, like similar to Yulha. You want to be low HP to do damage. It penetrates defense, so it does 0 damage into Ilynav and Diane. But aside from that, it's pretty good damage. You can Soul Burn to do less damage, but AoE, so it's more damage overall. And if your opponent is squishy, then it's gonna do, like, it's basically gonna one tap his entire team if you're low HP. And something interesting, he gets 25%, like as long as his S3 is up, he has 25% damage share, which means he basically has innate Aureus, so you don't have to play him Aureus, like it does not stack. Like as you can see on the description, when more than one damage sharing effect of the same kind is granted, only the strongest effect is applied. That means if you play, it's only if you have this and Aureus, only the 25% will be taken into account. And yeah, you can play him, thanks to that, you can play him Adamant, or most of the time you're just gonna play him Holy Sack. So because it's gonna take a lot of damage from this, and so you can just like revive and then press S3 even if you die. Aside from that, he gives defense buff on S2, he has a provoke on S1. His kit is like nothing too crazy. He's just, I mean, you won't really see much. The main use I've seen, the main way I've seen him used lately is when your opponent early pick, like turn 2 versus turn 2, your opponent early picks DJB. You want to pick a knight because you want mitigation, but you don't want DJB to get too much value. And so people just pick Krau without protection set. Like he's basically their default no protection set knight. It could be him, could be someone else. It's just Krau is like a decent kit overall, so they go for Krau. But yeah. Nothing too crazy. Alright. Karina, you won't see her. Lilias, you won't see her. Lilinav, you won't see anything else. Okay. So nice. That's it for the video. Sorry if it was a bit too long. I don't really know how to make it shorter. But I mean, yeah, hopefully it's fine. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a great day. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.